Yeah. Someone got gun on that dirt. Yeah.
Yo, if I were podcasting, it would be insane. Knowledge blowing like the sweetest rain. Professor Bear on the mic, spreading wisdom wide. A bear's thoughts, that's my pride, can't hide.
With the voices in your ear, changing the game.
If I rule podcasting, every thought we'd ignite. In a world of chatter, we'll spark in the fight. With Professor Bear, we're climbing to new heights. A bear's thoughts for task, shining bright in the night. Topics from the heart, never sounding the same. Got laughs and debates, never dull or bland. From culture to tech, take you by the hand. Join the ride with us, feel the vibe expand. With every episode, we shine that beginnings on the cusp. Not too old to adjust. Old dog, new tricks. Remember, I was just a pup. Something dirty in my cup. Clean.
Tune in, don't miss what we got to share. If I rule podcasting, I spread the love everywhere.
Welcome, and thank you for joining me today. I am Professor Bear, and this is A Bear's Thoughts. Guys, girls, once again, we are having a great interview with my guest today. We're going to do what we generally do and talk wrestling and learn about everything that is to know about Michael. And let me introduce him right now. This is Michael.
Hey, I get a round of applause. I like it.
Yes, sir. Trying to class up a little bit. It takes me a minute, though. But how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain. So, one of the things I always love to do is to ask this question of my guest. How did you become a wrestling fan?
Oh, Lord, I've answered this question so many times. I was a kid, 9, 10 years old, and I was at my brother's house for the holidays, and he was watching Portland wrestling on TV. I'm from Northern California, but he was living in Portland at that area at that time, and he was watching Portland wrestling on TV. And there was a wrestler there, Top Gun, and he was, masked wrestler, and he's starting to bleed. And I remember that mask being soaked in blood, and I thought, oh my God, this guy's gonna die. Is he okay? What's gonna happen? My brother's like, oh, he's fine. I'm like, what? He's not fine. There's blood. What's going on? I had no clue what it was, but I wanted to know if the guy was okay. So I kept asking my brother, is he okay? What's that? What were you watching? And then a couple years later on down the road, I started watching, the Hulkamania era of the WWF. Hogan and Savage and, Jim Duggan, Iron Sheik and all that. And I watched the cartoons, and that's just kind of what got me started, was that blood-soaked mask, and me as a, 10, 11-year-old kid not knowing if this guy was going to die. Is he okay? He's really hurt. I didn't know, but I wanted to know. And over the years, I found out more.
That is kind of cool. I'm a big 80s wrestling guy too, but I never really got a chance to watch Portland wrestling. Heard all about it, knew about it, read about it in my the magazines, which was big for us. But I never got to experience the action. The two people I knew from Portland was Billy Jack Haynes and Roddy Piper. Them were the main two that I knew about.
Mm-hmm.
So, with you experiencing wrestling and getting into it, what made you stay with it and go the route of doing what you do now?
I was always fascinated by it. I mean, as a kid, I was into it. So, and I always liked the characters. I like characters. I like stories. I love a straight wrestling match. Don't get me wrong. You get two great wrestlers in there, and I'm good to go. But I always like stories. I like characters. The more different. Like for example, currently I'm a Danhausen guy. I love Danhausen. I love everything that guy has done. I love the stories because it's fun. It's something interesting, and that's always kind of been my thing. I can watch a great wrestling match, but I love characters. I was always into writing, creative writing, and things like that. So I was always into telling stories, and of course, wrestling is the greatest, storytelling out there. So it's just kind of that over the years, and when I got in school, I had friends who watched it. I remember WrestleMania 3. Kid I knew in school, his dad got WrestleMania 3. It was the first one on pay-per-view. Before that, they were on closed circuit. So he got WrestleMania 3, and he invited his son's friends over. So there was me and my buddy and a bunch of our other friends, and we all sat on the living room. We were watching WrestleMania 3. I got to see Hogan body slam Andre, and I got to see Savage and Steamboat. And it's just, it was everything. I like the pageantry. I like the storytelling. If you tell a good story, the match doesn't have to be the greatest, in my opinion, wrestling wise, if there's a good story behind it. If there's a good story behind it, and this is the final chapter of that story, or a continuing, part of that story, I'm good with it. A good story to me is, makes a great match. But on the flip side of that too, if you got two guys that are in there that can put on a great match that don't need a story, I'm fascinated by that as well. But the main part for me is storytelling. And I find out over the years that people I've spoken to, interviewed, and encountered over the years, everybody in wrestling has a story to tell. Everybody. And I think they should have a chance to tell those stories, not just in the ring, but tell their personal stories, who they are, what makes them tick, what got them into the business. I love stuff like that. I haven't read anything but wrestling books probably for the last 25, 26 years. When Mick Foley released, Have a Nice Day, that was the beginning of it, and then it just continued. Excuse me, I have a cat here. And that was kind of that too, reading the wrestling magazines, reading the newsletters, reading the online sites. I just want to learn more, and I want to hear all the stories.
I definitely agree with you. To hear the different stories and getting to learn where people have gotten into the love of the sport is just so fascinating, because I've and I think this would be the same for you. I've been blessed to meet so many different people that if it wasn't for wrestling, I would never get a chance to know.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we have such similar backgrounds, and it's just so amazing to me. With that being said, and it's funny that you're talking about how big of a character person you are. I was having a discussion with someone recently, and we were talking about the wrestling. And I said to myself, I'm a pro wrestling fan. And I said, I'm less of an entertainment fan. And like you said, there you can enjoy both, and there can be different ways of loving, telling a great story either way. But I guess it's because of where I came from. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee, and the Southern wrestling, it was real to us. If you saw somebody bleed, oh my God, they didn't blade. They actually bled. Everything was real. And the easiest way to start a fight was to say it was fake.
It was wrestling. They
Exactly.
didn't do wrestling; it was wrestling, and I love that too. Don't get me wrong. I grew up in California, moved out here to Texas 10 years ago, and I meet Texas wrestling fans, and you know them. Who are they going to talk about? We're going to talk about the Von Erichs. We're going to
Of
talk about the
course.
Freebirds. We're going to talk about Chris Adams. And to them, man, going to the Sportatorium every Saturday night, that was religion to them. That's back when it was real. I love it
Oh
when people
yeah.
say that. That back when wrestling was real. And I'm like, I hate to tell you this, but, you know, they just did a really good job of, keeping it secret. Nowadays, everybody, you can find out anything you want to know on the internet or watch a streaming or listen to a podcast. But, back then, wrestling was real. I'm like, well,
And I think even with today's social media and us knowing what we know about wrestling, I think it really just depends on your take on it. Because even though I'm pretty knowledgeable about wrestling, but there are some wrestlers that bring me into that feeling. It's a feeling, and they can bring me into it as much as I could. Hell, I could probably see the two guys talking and getting their stuff together, or just being friendly in the back. But when they go out and in the ring, they can make me forget everything. They just bring that emotion out of me.
oh, I still have that. I still get that. I get caught up. I watch so much wrestling and all that, because, you know, bottom line, I'm a historian. That's my thing. I want to make sure that the stories are told because if we forget that, we don't tell it, it's going to eventually die. You know, I
And
equate it. I equate it. You ever seen the movie Coco? The Disney movie
yeah,
about the day of the month. What's the thing? Once people stop remembering, they finally pass away. They go away. It's the same thing to me. That's kind of the same thing with wrestling. If you don't pass it along, if there isn't someone there to remember you, then it dies. And I want to make sure that doesn't happen. But I still get caught up in a great match. In fact, just this past weekend, everybody's talking about it. I sat and watched AAA. I watched Americano versus Americano for an hour. I was glued to that TV. I was whoa. I was into it because they told such a great story in that match. That for me is probably a match of the year candidate, just right there. It was an amazing match. It started off as the goofiest little, making fun of luchador, whatever, to turning into something that it looked like the entire, country of Mexico was there to see this match. Those fans were loud, and that got me into it just as much. So it still happens. I'm still a fan. I still go whoa, but and I enjoy it when that happens.
and I do too. And I hate to even admit this, but I still hadn't watched the match all the way. I've seen bits and pieces, and I don't want to do it a disservice by not having the time to really watch it because I've heard so much about it and seen bits and pieces that I want to give it that real energy and time to be able to get that passion that everybody, it seems like everybody who's watched it has. And
You got to invest an hour. It's an hour from the beginning to the end with everything on. It's a solid hour. You have to devote, and you're not gonna turn away. Once you start and you're in there for that hour, you're hooked. I don't care who you are, you're gonna get hooked.
and that's another thing I love about that match too. You do not have to be a luchador fan to love that match. No matter what stylistic of wrestling fan you are, it brings everybody in, and that's such a rare feat, especially for today's audience.
Well, yeah, no, it brought together, and WWE did such a great way of producing it and setting it up. On Raw that week before that, they had that video with Ray explaining, the history of mask versus mask. Because in Mexico, your mask is your identity, and a
Exactly.
mask versus mask is that's the final be all match right there. Because once you lose your identity, you can't go back. and they did a good job of explaining that. So if you didn't know the history of the lucha, you learned it, and the two combatants, and I'm just gonna say combatants. We all know who they were, but I'll for storyline, for hell with it, I'll stick with it. I'm not gonna say names. I mean, we now know that the OG Americano was Chad Gable, but he told that story. He learned it. He followed it, and it turned out great. And WWE produced it perfectly. And I feel it was a learning opportunity because my son is 15. He doesn't know a lot about Mexican wrestling, but he learned a lot about the mask match and the history of the mask and things like that. So I think he also learned some stuff watching it.
And that's a great thing. While we're talking about this, I've seen several people afraid that Chad Gable will not get the desired push that he rightfully deserves after that match in the WWE. What is your opinion on that?
Honestly, I don't know. I think he'd be better off staying in AAA and doing some stuff there. I don't think he needs to, obviously WWE owns AAA or TKO owns AAA. But I mean, if they do, I'd like to see him get more of a. But I've always felt Chad Gable deserved a push. I don't know why they've always kind of never really got behind Chad Gable. Always like a tag team guy or kind of the little mid card, dude. But they put him in a mask and he ran with it. But then he got injured and somebody else ran with it, but he came back and stuck to it. And so I think the Grande Americano was probably like one of the best storylines they've ever given him. But he had to be under a mask. I don't know what they'll do with him now, as popular as he is because of the run in this match. Maybe it's going to work in his favor.
Another aspect of of the program that really captured me is that in Mexico, Chad was the heel, but in WWE he's the face, and I love that because it's more of a territorial back in the day feel where you could go one place and be that rough and tough baby face and then go to another territory and be that dastardly heel. And I just love that they were able to capture that emotion from the different sides and show it still can work in the modern day.
Mexico's a different animal. I mean, they're still really into the history. They're still really into, the reality of it and all that. Mexico's different. It's kind of like Japan. Japan's kind of the same thing. They're both still kind of a territory, but yet WWF can go to Japan and put on their stuff, and the fans will go to that too. It's kind of different. Mexico and Japan are still, in my opinion, kind of a territory thing. And in Mexico, like I was telling my son, going to the matches at Arena Mexico, that's a weekly thing. That's, part of their culture. It's part of the life. You go down the streets and there's vendors selling lucha masks. There's, it's wrestling in Mexico is a lot different than wrestling here in the States.
It's like I think you said it perfectly. It's that tradition that they still carry a pride in, and I think that's what makes it so much not necessarily better, but more suspenseful, mostly for myself, of course. Um, so let's talk about you and your podcasting. When did you start doing podcasting?
I actually started because I always made the joke that I had a face made for radio. Um, I started writing for newsletters back in 1995. So I was doing newsletters, and with the advance of the internet, the online newsletter became the thing. AOL groups would get a thing, and they wanted content. So I wrote a lot of content. I actually did interviews with, like I interviewed Seth Rollins when he was in Ring of Honor as Tyler Black. I asked him, I sent him a list of questions and he sent them back. I wrote it up into an interview. That's how I did them back then because they were, emails and things. So when podcasting kind of grew its wings, it became a thing. I listened to a couple of them, because Jim Ross had one, Stone Cold, and that was the start of it. Now there's so many podcasts you can't, you throw a rock an inch and you're going to hit a podcast. But I started getting to them in 2014. Gentleman I was working with, it was out here in Texas. I was still in California with IHWE out of Fort Worth. He put a post up on Facebook that he was looking for a host for a podcast, IHWE Radio. And one thing you learn about me is when I hear of an opportunity like, oh, I'm looking for a writer for this, or I'm looking for someone who can take photos for this, or I'm looking for that. I'm the guy that goes, oh, I'll try it. I'll do it. I'll give it a try. And that's what I did. I said, I've never hosted a radio or a podcast before, but, I'll give it a shot. And a couple days later, he messaged me and he goes, hey, we're going live on Wednesday. Okay. All right. And the first episode I did was horrible because when I introduced myself, I'm your host, the Grizzle Vet, not Grizzle Vet, but, Mike McCurdy. And we're here on IHWE Radio. Everything was like this when I would do my intros. And it sounds like crap. I hate it. And it's available on YouTube. So, my embarrassment can be heard by the masses for the rest of my life. But that was my start on it. And we figured, it was going to go a few months, It was kind of mainly to promote, like, the shows that he was going to be doing that year because he was coming back into the promoting world. So it was kind of going to be to promote the shows there, but it ran for 2.5 years, and I interviewed all sorts of people. 6 months into it, the promoter of IHWE, he stepped down as my co-host. And I brought a friend of mine in to co-host with me, Joe Souza. I brought in Brian Westcott as my historian, and we ran for another 2 years. And we talked to IHWE guys, but we also talked to everybody else too. It was still called IHWE Radio, so it was still named after the company. But I was talking to Ivan Koloff and the widow of Terry Gordy, Connie Gordy, his widow. I was talking to Jim Cornette, Stan Hansen, Ted DiBiase, Chaz Taylor, who else? Just so many different people that weren't even associated with IHWE. So I kind of ran with it, took the ball and ran with it, and did 2 years on that. That ended in 2016 when I moved out here. We were going to take a couple months break, but things happened and some not the way they should have, so the show kind of ended. We didn't come back. And then in 2018, once again, Glenn Broggett, who was the host of Wrestling Memories on Pioneer 90.1 FM KSRQ in Thief River Falls, Minnesota, he hosted that show with George Shire. George Shire was stepping down, and Glenn put up a post on Facebook, looking for some new co-hosts. Going to do a revolving door of co-hosts. And, each week have 3 or 4 different people, and we'll rotate. That's my plan. I'm like, okay. I messaged him. I said, hey, I haven't done a podcast in a couple years. I'll try it. I'll do it. So he brought me on. He never brought on a second or a third or a fourth co-host. We never had the rotating co-host. It's been me and him since 2018. So I'm 8 years into that. During that time, I started doing podcasts with a friend of mine, Trey Mack. It was because he had the Offshoots Network, and he had a podcast called The Offshoots, and I would go on and we would talk wrestling and joke around and stuff like that. That eventually became Offshoots TV, which was another branch, because now I wasn't just a voice. I wasn't just a voice. I was a face. I'm this right here. So my face made for radio is now being broadcast live on the internet. So I got into the video streams. Did that that ended about last year about this time. We had to run on that because schedule-wise we just couldn't continue with it. A few months later, I got a chance with the company Get Your Bell Rung Pro Wrestling Podcast, which airs on YouTube on Wednesday nights, on Thursday nights, Friday nights, and Tuesday nights. We'll talk about Raw. We talk about AEW Dynamite. We do a immediately after Friday Night SmackDown, we do a live like recap of SmackDown. So I got involved with them, and then just here about a week or so ago, I got hooked up with the Retro Wrestling Archive Podcast Network. I gotta say that correctly. I got hooked up with them, and my debut show, Talking Off the Top Rope with the Grizzle Vet, it just debuted on Wednesday. So now I'm doing that. Once again, another video stream being recorded. It's pre-recorded in advance, not doing live. Live always kind of scares me a little bit, but I mean, I've done it. I prefer pre-recorded. And so I've been doing that. And on top of that, I'm also working on a couple books with some people, helping them with like editing and proofreading and putting that together. So you would kind of say I'm running out of hours in the day, but it's snowballing and giving me so much opportunity that over the last couple of years that once again, oh, I need some help editing a book. I'll try it. I need some help working this book. I'll do it. I'm doing two now. I read them, I edit them, kind of help out a little bit. They do all the writing. I don't ghost write. They do all the writing. I do the editing, and I say, well, let's change this, let's fluff this up. But and then on top of that, I still do research. I still get people like looking for results for they're running Memphis or they're running Puerto Rico, and I have my network of people that I can go to and say, hey, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. So I still do that. I still write if somebody's looking for something to need something written. But nowadays podcast is a thing, not newsletters. But the opportunity arises. I'll write like a profile of somebody for a program or something like that. I still do those type of things too. So over the 31 years that I've been around this business, it's kind of evolved from a guy that was just like researching wrestling and archiving stuff to where I'm at now.
I find it funny that we are very similar. The way I got my start was I saw someone that needed a co-host, and I had never did it. And at first, I was like, "Nah, I don't think I want to do it." And my wife, she was like, "Yeah, you need to do it. You will debate against God, so this is right up your alley." And I'm like, okay. Then I tried it, and once I got comfortable with it, like you, that first one was just god awful. But we learn and we progress and get comfortable with it. And I know now, looking at going on 4 years, 4 years history, it's like, wow, I can't believe that I've accomplished what I have. I'm able to say I've given back to the sport I love. I continue to try to make it better and make it where it's going to live a lot longer than me. So I really get a kick out of that. And then getting to meet some of our heroes and talking to them and letting them know how much they've meant to me and my life and everything. It's just such a great event, and never thought I would get this type of blessing.
No, I'm the same way. It's just kind of, it's what I was doing, it's what I enjoy doing. Never thought I'd meet people, never thought I'd, I never thought I'd be of anything important. But now I actually get people that, I work at a grocery store here in Fort Worth, and I had a customer. You look familiar. And I said, okay, I'm not sure who you are, but all right. And he goes, wait, do you do Get Your Bell Rung? And I'm like, yeah, I do Get Your Bell Rung. He goes, yeah, I watch that every. I'm like, oh. And randomly picked me up on YouTube or whatever, somehow, some way, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. I'm like, oh, okay. Hey, cool. Guy like wanted to, oh, can I get a selfie with you? I'm like, sure. Weird, but I did it, But that's always been kind of me. I get in odd situations or just things happen, and I'm always kind of the, oh shucks, oh darn, oh golly geez, oh yeah. It doesn't seem real to me. When I was in back home in California, I helped promote 3 shows with my buddy Joe, who I did the podcast with, and we promoted 3 shows there. And people would come up to me because I lived locally. They'd come up to me and, oh, hey, I saw you. You know, that was a great show. And they want to talk about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, thanks. All right, cool. You know, kids would come up to me with the program from the show while we're there and, oh, sign it for me. I'm like, sign autograph, thanks. I'm like, you want my autograph? I'm just the guy who paid the money to book this thing. I'm nothing, but all right. You know, kids would ask, can I get a picture with you? Adults would ask, could they get their picture with me? And I found it weird. I still find it strange. I get it on occasion. I still find it strange, but I know it's part of the whole part of the game. So I just kind of, okay, you know, smile, point to the camera, do my little, you know, or point to them pose. You know how we all do those.
Oh yeah.
I still do those things, but I don't like doing this. You know, you're like, hey, I'd like you on my show. I'm like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll come on and talk about it. I'm starting to learn to be a little more kind of, you know, I don't know what the word, to be more confident in what I'm doing because now I'm getting people. You're probably the 5th or 6th one of these I've done in the last probably 6 months because people are asking me, oh, you want to come on and do the show? And I'm like, okay. And I tell a lot of the same stories and all that, but it's still kind of like, wow, they want to talk to me. Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and see that's where we are similar. I definitely understand how you feel. The first time I actually had a wrestler come up to me and wanted to take a picture with me, and I'm just standing there like, what? And then while we were talking, it was him and his fiance, and I was like, you do realize this is supposed to be the opposite. We switch places, right? You're the wrestler. You're the one that's put butts in the seat. I'm just a podcast host. I just talk about my experience. You're like, man, you're great. You helped do this, and I'm like, wow. I don't look at it like that. I just look at being able to tell people my passion about the sport I love and my knowledge, and where I feel like a lot of people don't look at it the same way. I'm like, no, I want this sport to live. Go to your locals, man, enjoy them, give them their props. There's more that wrestling has so many different flavors, and just because you are into one, learn more about the sport, do your history. So that's all I am. I'm like you. I'm just the guy to tell my story, and it's amazing. The first time I gave an autograph, I'm sitting there in my head keep telling myself, don't cry, don't cry. This is just stupid awesome. And I can't believe it. Somebody actually wants my autograph. So I definitely understand that. So when I go places and somebody recognizes me, I make sure, I don't care what kind of mood I'm in. I take that time and give them that same energy as if I was a wrestler and I was meeting them, because that's what I would want.
I always tell them to leave me alone. I don't have time. I'm just kidding. Kind of funny story along that line. Back home in California, one of the crazy incidents that I tend to end up in, it was a lucha show at the fairground, the local county fair. They came every year and they put on a lucha show, like 4 or 5 matches, nothing major, no big names. I mean, these are guys like Jose Jalapeno or something. They're
Right.
not, it's all gimmick, but still. Third year, I think they were doing the show. They were coming up and they got caught in construction, and half the crew couldn't make it. So me and my friend Joe, we were there to help out because we had met him the first year, and we came back doing pictures, taking video stuff, and all that. And I told him, I said, "Hey, if you need any help with anything this year," he goes, "Oh, I need a ref." I'm like, "Well, I can't help you there. I've never done that before." So, and he told us that he had like half the crew. So he ended up having to wrestle that night. He had a crew of like, I think 6 or 7 of his wrestlers actually made it. So he had to wrestle. They did a tag match, a single match, then they do a battle royal with everybody that was there.
Right.
But he comes up to me a half hour before the show, and he tosses me a shirt. And it's one of the promotion shirts. He goes, "Okay, you're going to ref." I'm like, "Yeah, ha, ha, ha." He goes, "No, seriously, you're going to ref." I don't know how to ref. He goes, listen to the guys in the ring. We'll tell you what to do. Okay, so I get in there and I put the t-shirt on over my white polo shirt that I was wearing, and I go in there and I'm wearing like sandals because every referee they wear sandals. Um, so I'm in there and they walked me through it, and I did the entire show. It hurt like hell. I remember the next day getting up to go to work, and for some reason I couldn't realize why my legs burned from my ankles all the way up to my thighs. I'm like, why does it feel like my legs are on fire? I am in such pain. And then I realized I'm not used to walking in a ring, so my legs got to work. Oh, okay. But anyways, yeah, that was one of those things. Oh, you need some help? I need a ref. I don't know. You're gonna ref. Oh, okay, shit. All right, I'm gonna do this. I did it. But to go along with that story, a few days later, I'm at work and I worked at a gas station, and there's a guy in there with his son, and the kids all, they're Hispanic and they're talking amongst each other, and the kid's pointing, and I asked him, I thought, well, maybe they need something. I said, is there anything I can help you with? And he goes, oh no, my son, he recognized you from the lucha show at the fairgrounds. I said, oh yeah, I was the referee. Yeah, how'd you like the show? They said, oh, it was fun. My son, he just recognized you. He was asking if we could get a picture, and I told him no, you're not really. I'm like, oh man, I can take a picture with the kid. Why not? So I got down on my one knee with the kid, and we posed for the picture, and then his dad got in a picture with us and all that stuff because the kid saw me and went, oh, it's the referee from the lucha show. I'm like, no, kid, I'm the guy who works at the gas station. I just happened to be the referee at the lucha show because he needed a referee.
Love it. Love it. So, with that being said, getting to talk to so many different wrestlers, who would be the biggest wrestler that you talked to that you had to constantly tell yourself, don't mark out, don't mark out?
Okay, I will tell you this. Well, for me, one, I'm a WCC world class fan. I got to interview Kevin Von Erich. That for me, that was 6 weeks into doing my first podcast. So I'd been doing it for like 6 weeks, and I was like, oh, you're gonna interview Kevin Von Erich. Okay, we can do this, and I did just fine with that one. It ended up being more call-in people because they want to call in and ask Kevin questions, so that wasn't that hard. The one that's always been the toughest for me, and as soon as I say the name, you're gonna know why. I got the chance to interview Jim Cornette. So you can just imagine the fun and hilarity that ensued with Jim Cornette, because I'm trying to ask a question and he pops off, my co-host, at the time. All right, Michael, let's go with the questions. Yes, and there's Jim. Yes, I'm prepared to be grilled to the best of his abilities. I heard one time he got a sodomy charge reduced to tailgating. And I'm sitting at the other end of the mic like, crap, okay. All right, I'm getting like roasted by Jim Cornette, and my co-host telling me, come on, Michael, let's go. And I'm like, I'm trying. I'm really trying. Because Jim is just so rapid fire. You cannot keep up with Jim Cornette. It was just one after the other. And I'm like, yeah, oh, crap. To the point where the end of the show, we're doing it. I said, Jim, thank you for joining us. I really enjoyed this interview. And he goes, yeah, well, I've read in the German porn magazines that people like having their nut sacks nailed to 2x4s too. So I'm not sure if that's a compliment. And I'm just like, God, okay. Because that's just Jim. He's rapid fire. It's like interviewing Don Rickles,
Yes.
It's like, God. I mean, we got good questions. We got good answers out of him. But when he just got to, spitfire whatever, or spitball it, oh my God. Just, yeah, and I seem to be the target, yeah.
I've been blessed to be able to talk to Jim on a couple of different occasions. And one particular time, Smoky Mountain was based out of Knoxville, Tennessee. So,
Yep.
Just so happened, I was going to an NWA fan fest, and the night before they had a local show here. And this was a little whiles after Jim left, but Jim actually happened to come back to Knoxville for the show, and I got to meet him, and we talked for a second and just kind of cut up. Then the next day at the festival, I got to talk to him again. Well, he was with Bobby and Dennis. And the way they had everything set up, they had the wrestlers on stage, and we walked down to talk to the wrestlers, get autographs and whatever. So they were the last three people at the tables. So it was Jim, it was Dennis, and it was Bobby. So I walk up, hey Jim, see you again. He's like, oh, you follow me, guy? I was like, maybe, who knows? Then talk to Dennis. Hey man, really loved your work. Man, you really made me want to punch you in the damn face. He laughed and got to Bobby. And oh man, I was like, man, that Alabama jam, oh, just well. He's like, thank you, thank you. So I started walking off, and I stopped, and I spun back around. I was like, holy shit, you talk. Jim was drinking a Coke, spit that Coke all over the place, started laughing. When I tell you Bobby gave me a death stare, I legitimately thought he was gonna get up and beat the crap out of me. And I didn't know what to do. I just like, oh, and then he started laughing. So I'm like, whoo, okay, cool, cool. He found the humor in it. Next day, me and my buddy looking for a ATM to get some cash out. All of a sudden, I heard his voice. Oh yeah, I'm glad I ran into you. I turn around, it's Bobby. That death stare he had, it was back. I mean, I started literally shaking, and I'm sitting there thinking oh my God, I know I can't outrun him. I know, and I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4", 300 pounds. I'm a big guy, but I'm scared as shit. I'm not gonna lie. And the only thing I keep thinking is, if Bobby starts beating me up, I hope my buddy better jump in and try to help me. At least let me get him off of me so I can run. He came up to me. I'm still shaking. Visibly shaking. He grabbed me and hugged me. I was like, don't do that. You're going to make me cry. So a couple years later, ran into Jim again. And I was like, hey, Jim, happened to see you before. I know you ain't gonna remember me. He said, yeah, I remember you. I'm like, you just telling me that because you know I'm a fan and he said, no, I remember you. And he told the story. And I fell out laughing. He's like, from now on, every 10 years, we're gonna get together and tell this damn story. I was like, you got it.
See, that's what I love about it. Those are the stories that I think need to be remembered. So, keep telling that story. Even if you never see Jim again, constantly tell that story. That's a thing right there. I had the chance to interview Bobby a couple different times, and I can say I've talked to people about Bobby and I've talked to Bobby. And I can say nobody in the wrestling business can say a bad thing about Bobby Eaton. That man was loved by everybody. I mean, the entire wrestling world shed a tear when beautiful Bobby died. And nobody could say anything bad about it. But interviewing Bobby was a whole different story. Bobby, you had a chance to wrestle Ric Flair, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that was a good match. I like working with Flair. And Bobby, so when you say you can talk, yeah, he can. He don't talk much. And he doesn't want to talk about himself. He wants to talk about everybody else. He wants to put everybody else over. Bobby did not like talking about himself. So while I enjoyed doing the interviews, it's probably like two of the hardest interviews I ever did. At least the second one, I kind of knew what to expect, but I still couldn't, short of figuring out a way to reach through the phone line and choke an answer out of him, I couldn't get him to talk. He didn't want to. He wanted to talk about, and his answers were very short. Yeah, that was good. That was good. I enjoyed that match. With that drawl of his, but it was Bobby. You had to love it.
Yes. I just came back from Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling Fan Fest.
Did you see my buddy KG there from Get Your Bell Rung Pro Wrestling Podcast?
Yes, I did.
He was there. KG was there, yes. I will be recording with him in a couple hours tonight.
Oh, cool. And I'm of course, going around getting to talk to people and stuff. And one of the biggest things that I always try to do if I get to meet a legend, I always try to thank them for everything they do and their sacrifice to make us wrestling fans happy and help us forget about our trouble for a while. And I got to talk to Iceman King Parsons.
How'd
And
that go?
oh my God, he is just such a sweet individual.
Did he sell you a shirt?
No, he he was. We were just talking because I went broke. I'm not even gonna lie. So I couldn't buy anything, but he was just such an amazing person to talk to. And I was telling him, I was like, especially, I was like, man, I really loved you. I said, because especially in them days, we didn't have a lot of representation in wrestling. So, of course, a lot of times I'm immediately drawn to the black wrestler. And I was telling him how much he meant to me. And he actually had the world title there. And I, I I marked out. I tell no lie, I marked out with that. And I was telling him how much of an influence he was, and I appreciated him. And I'm assuming it was his son and daughter was there. And I said, anytime you ever want to do a podcast, please, please. I gave him a card and I said, man, please look me up. I'll be so honored. And he told me, and his family told me, they're going to go out of their way to try to make sure they do a podcast with me. And I found that so amazing.
I won't say anything negative, but I would be happy to see that. I'd be amazed if it happened. I have tried to reach out to King Parsons for an interview, and somehow it always ends up being how much do you pay or whatever. And nothing against the guy. I got nothing against the guy. I've met him a couple times, but obviously some of the guys still want to, make their money or whatever. He's a hell of a nice guy, but that's why I asked about the shirt. When I went out to meet him, I said, "Oh, sir, pleasure to meet you. Big fan, all that." And he goes, "Hey, you want to buy a shirt?" And he just handed me one. I'm like, okay, I guess I want to buy a shirt. He'll sell a shirt to a homeless man if he can, if he can get the shirt out of him. But like I said, nothing against him personally. I think he's a wonderful guy, but he'll sell to you. I mean, and that's fine. I'm good with that. But,
I got to meet Jimmy Hart. Jimmy is who he is. The character is who he is. He's such a just really down to earth, sweet individual.
mm-hmm.
And I was blown away by
I broke
him.
down chairs with Jimmy Hart one time.
Really?
Yes, at a CAC whatever. After the show was over, they were taking the chairs out and stacking them and all that. And I'm stacking chairs, and I looked over and there's Jimmy Hart stacking chairs at the CAC where he's supposed to be a guest, at the CAC reunion. And he's sorry, my cat likes to call me, but he's at the CAC and he's breaking down chairs, and I'm just like, wow, okay. So when people say he does that, he does that. He's just Jimmy. One of the nicest guys you're ever gonna meet. Hey Jimmy, can I get a picture? Oh yeah, baby, let's take a picture, baby.
And I think probably, and again, I got to meet so many different guys. One, JBL. I didn't get a chance to talk to him long because I called him right before he was about to go get ready for his match. But I did get the question. I got to ask him this question. I'm like, man, you are known for your lariat. You are top 10 in lariats in the business. I said, my question to you is, who threw the hardest lariat on you? Without blinking, he didn't even have to blink. Yep, Stan Hansen.
I think that's the answer to anybody, because people don't realize this. Stan was blind. I've had him tell me this. Stan is blind as a bat.
Yes.
Without his glasses, Stan can't see. Stan can't wear his glasses in the ring. So he makes sure when he told me, when I put on the clothesline, I made sure to put it in hard because he couldn't see. So he would make sure that he did it real hard to make sure it got that influence because he couldn't see what he was doing. Blind as a bat and threw a hell of a clothesline.
Yes. It was just amazing to get to talk to so many legends and just that experience. Again, it's amazing. And some of the things that I've learned to appreciate too. I go to this local show, and again, I'm just a podcaster. I know my history a little bit, but I was had I was talking to a young lady there. It was her, I think, third or fourth show, and I was like, "Hey, I would love to get an interview with you if you ever want to do one." She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Man," she's like, "Man," she said, "I'm so glad to meet you. You just don't realize how popular you are." I'm like, just you don't have to blow smoke up my butt. She's like, "No, really." She said, "Every time you come to a show, everybody knows because everybody talks about you and everybody gets psyched up and the energy goes up." She said, "I promise you, every time you come to a show." And I'm like, again, why? Why? But it's so I've definitely learn to appreciate and don't take it for granted.
Mm. I get that feeling when I look at views on our YouTube channels, like my show that just debuted on yesterday. I think it's got like 75 views. Not a big number, but I'm looking going, 75 people watched me? Oh shit, all right, cool. 75 people watch me. Hey, maybe next week 100 people will watch me. Because I
Exactly.
don't go to shows that much around here anymore because I just don't like, ever since the pandemic, I just don't like dealing with groups of people. I don't even go to a movie theater. Growing shopping is about the biggest group activity I want to do anymore. Uh, Although I am taking my daughter to see Weird Al in September, so that'll be a little bit of a group. But I don't go to the show, so I don't get that. But I get it when I see people comment on something, or I see they watch the show, or they comment on something on my Facebook page, and I'm going, "Wow, okay, people are in it. Okay, cool. I'm nothing big. I mean, I'm literally doing my studio as the bedroom. You can see there's the. As like I
So,
said, I'm letting you into my world. This is my world.
it's the same. And getting to talk to some um, historians in the business and they put me on their same level is just mind blowing. It's like, no, you're way more knowledgeable than me. You're a better talker than me. And just to be mentioned on the same plane is like, wow.
Yeah, I get that. We're talking about KG. KG tells me how great I am at what I do and how, you know, oh, I sound so professional, and he wants to sound like, I'm like, dude, I sound like an idiot half the time. I just talk confidently, I guess. I don't see. And as far as historians go, guys like, I know guys like Greg Oliver, Steven Johnson, and Dan Murphy, Bob Smith from Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I know guys like that. I'm not at their level. They're the guys I look up to. If I could do half of what they do, I will be perfectly happy with my contribution. And that's kind of the way I look at it. And maybe there's somebody going, oh, if I could do half of what the grizzled vet does, I'm like, yeah, will that happen? I don't think so, but I mean, if it did, great. But you always got to have people you look up to. You're
Oh,
never.
definitely.
They might think you're no, you're just like I am, and you're like, no, 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 I'm not.
Yes. And and I think that's what continues to motivate me to give the best I can. It was in January and February, I decided, hey, I'm going to do an appreciation month. In January, it was podcasters appreciation. And then in February, it was promoters appreciation. And I was just wanting to give back to, like you said, there's podcasters or we're a dime a dozen. But I, as much as there are 1,000 of us out there, how many of us get to hear from our peers? Hey, I appreciate you. Continue doing what you do. And you don't, a lot of times we don't know what that means for other people. We know what it means when we hear it, but not for other people. So I just wanted to give back, and the different promoters I wanted to put a spotlight on and let people understand it's a lot more than just, okay, I'm gonna have a match, you're gonna win and be done. It's a lot more energy and time and effort into it. So I I literally in those 2 months I almost did 100 episodes in those 2 months,
Oh no, that's a lot.
and and, and it was crazy because I was like, whatever your schedule is, I can mask it. It doesn't matter because unfortunately or fortunately, it depends on how you look at it. I'm disabled, so I have the time on my hand. So I was going at one time. I think I did 6 podcasts in one day, and as much as I was burnt out, didn't want to do it, I just kept thinking, no, there's somebody who wants to hear it. That person I promised that show to, I want to be a man of my word. Now, of course, I had some that fell out for different reasons, but I tried my best to do what I said. And after that, I did a few more, and then I had to take a little break. Then I got sick. Then I had some family issues, but now I'm back to feeling energized. It's like I got to continue giving great energy when I talk about wrestling. When I have a guest on, I don't want a guest to ever leave my show and be like, that's the worst thing. That was the worst show I ever did. I would never work that person again.
Oh, I've done the worst show ever, so we're good on that one. Um, I will flip the script though. I've mentioned talking off the top rope on the Retro Wrestling Archive Podcast Network. I am pre-recording. I want to throw out right now. I want to throw out an invitation to you to be my guest because the concept of my show is telling the story so that they're not forgotten. And these are the people that I've met in my journey over the last 31 years. I'm interested to hear your story or whatever. So I want to flip that script, and we're going to have you as a guest on my show.
I
In the
appreciate
coming
that.
years.
Oh man, I got a junkyard dog story that I tell all the time that still to this day amazes me. God rest his soul. But it was one of the craziest things with him. I have a Roman Reigns and a Uso story. Um, I've been lucky enough that my father was a big wrestling fan. My brother is a big wrestling fan. So and he was had some real good connections in the business. So I got great stories from him and getting to talk to people. And yes, I would love to come on the show, and I definitely appreciate that.
We'll make that work. I got an Iron Sheik story that could curl your toes. It takes about 20 minutes to tell, so I would have to do it at another time. But
Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on my show. Um, I appreciate everything you're doing to keep this wrestling business alive, and I'm so proud to say that we're brothers in arms because we look at wrestling the same way to try to keep it alive, fresh, and not let these great stories get lost, and let these younger kids learn. Hey, learn your history. Learn about. I think I blew a kid's mind when I told them Hogan was a bad guy before the NWO days, and he couldn't believe me. And I'm like,
don't tell him, but Hogan slammed Andre years before WrestleMania 3.
yes.
I know.
But yes, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for inviting me to your show. And before we go, are there any shout outs or anything you would like to give?
Not really. I mean, I have to give credit where credit's due. I've got to give credit to my wife and my kids and all that because they're supporting me to let me do this type of stuff. So they're out waiting for me to finish up here. So, but I got to give them credit because you got to have that support. And then also I plug things. Wrestling Memories every Sunday afternoon, 12 p.m. Central on Pioneer 90.1 FM KSRQ. You can stream it live at radionorthland.org. You can search for Pioneer Radio on the TuneIn Radio app or download the Pioneer Community Radio app. Like I said, every Sunday, 12 p.m. Central, myself and Glenn Broggett, we often interview many of the top talent, many of the top authors. You want to find out a book coming out, come check out our show. Tonight on our YouTube channel, Get Your Bell Rung Pro Wrestling Podcast, myself, KG Landry, and Robbie Idol will be talking about last night's AEW Dynamite, what we like, what we hate, are we going to shit on anything? You never know. Friday nights, we talk about SmackDown just about 15-30 minutes after SmackDown ends. And, of course, every other Wednesday, I am bi-weekly talking off the top rope on the Retro Wrestling Archive Podcast Network.
Again, thank you so much for coming on, and can't wait to do it again.
I'll get in touch with you, man. We'll get you on my show, and anytime you want me to come back, and hey, tell you what, next time I come back, I'll tell you the Iron Sheik story. Like I said, it takes about 20 minutes.
Hey, I love it. I can't wait to hear it.
Oh, it's a doozy.
Guys, girls, thank you so much for joining me today with another great story around the campfire. And it's very important. I always say, go support your local indie promotions. And I do believe in that and will continue saying that. But do your history, do your research on wrestling. I'm telling you, there's a lot of things that you may not know of and that you can get some great stories out of and learn. And it's good to keep that history alive, because unfortunately, when we stop talking about it, it disappears and it goes out the way. And we definitely don't want to lose great memories and stories like that. So, with that being said, I am Professor Bear. This has been a Bear's Thought, and we'll catch you around the campfire again real soon. Y'all take care.